the most wonderful time of the year. Thanksgiving has come and Thanksgiving has gone. The fridge is packed with leftovers. Turkey sandwiches and turkey soup are all on the lunch and dinner menus. And perhaps you have packed on a few extra pounds. Let me tell you a secret. You look good. Like Thanksgiving Thursday, Black Friday too has retreated for another year. Many of us are preparing for Cyber Monday. And please don't forget Giving Tuesday, $ B2B today. It's that time of year. Actually, according to certain retailers and Madison Avenue executives, the Christmas season is no longer relegated to Black Friday through December 24th, like it once was. In fact, I started seeing Christmas trees and lights and toys and holiday foods before Halloween was even over. Seeing the trappings of the season, the evergreens and the wreaths and the cranberries and tree ornaments and striped candy canes and all of the hues of red and green before the hints of orange and brown were stored away threw me off a bit at first. But every time I went to the grocery store, I started to get used to what I was seeing. In other words, the sights of the season became normative, which got me to thinking, why do we celebrate Christmas this time of year anyway? And when exactly is Jesus' birthday? I'm going to start a new birther movement. You ready? Was Jesus actually born on December 25th? The answer is we don't know exactly or the exact day or date of Jesus' birth. But we do know that he was born. The gospel writers of Mark, Matthew, and Luke, John, attest to his life. The historian Josephus testifies of his life. The census that his parents, Mary and Joseph, had to attend when Mary was pregnant with Jesus speaks to his life. So we may not know the day Jesus was born, but you should remember the day that Jesus was born in you. Again, the question, why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? First, let me tell you what Christmas means. Christmas is a contraction. That's two words put together to shorten or make it easier to pronunciate. Like you and all. The contraction of you and all is y'all. Christmas comes from the Christ Mass, or the Mass of Christ. Catholics still call their worship services and their worship experiences Mass. So the Christ Mass is a worship service where Christians remember that Christ died and then he came back to life. Christmas is a reminder of ultimate hope. Like our Catholic brothers and sisters say, Christ has died, Christ has risen, Christ will come again. Christmas is all about a comeback, like the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chiefs were losing with seconds left on the clock. Under a minute. Honestly, I got up, went to the bathroom, thought the game was over. But the game was not over. When the game was over, I saw Patrick Mahomes doing the post-game interview, which means they won. That's good news for somebody listening because you were running out of time with seconds left on the clock. But God came through in the clutch for you, and now you can give your post-game interview, which is your testimony, because you can say, I got the victory. You're not feeling Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? How about Bitcoin? Have you looked at the financial part of the paper recently? And if you don't know Bitcoin or what Bitcoin is all about, you better ask somebody. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that, in my opinion, will soon be the world's currency standard. It wasn't that long ago that economists were just about ready to give up on Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a great start, reaching highs of 12,000, 13,000, but then it tumbled all the way down to 3,000 and some change. But in the last couple of weeks, Bitcoin has broken its own record highs and has reached as high as 19,000. It has never reached that high before, and some economists say it's going up to 30,000. What does this have to do with anything? I'm talking about a comeback. And what I'm trying to say is God is fitting to make a comeback in your life. Yep, I said it fitting. And it's going to take you to heights you've never seen before. So why do we celebrate Christmas on December 25th? Very early Christian tradition suggests that Mary was told she would be the mother of a very special baby on March 25th. We call this day on the liturgical calendar the day of the Annunciation. 9 months after March 25th is December 25th. March 25th was also chosen because it is thought that March 25th is also the day that Jesus died. So according to this theory, Jesus would be born and have died on the same day. Don't miss this, watch this. I don't know what day it was for you. I don't know when you received the announcement. And I'm not talking about LeBron. But somebody can testify that something died in your life. But the same day that something died in your life is the same day that something was born in your life. Another reason why December 25th was chosen to celebrate Christmas is because of the winter solstice. The winter solstice refers to the shortest day in the year from sunrise to sunset. It also means it's the day with the longest night. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, you could point to this day and say, winter is coming. The winter solstice happens on December 21st or the 22nd, depending on the particular year. And yes, the winter solstice was a pagan celebration. To pagans, this meant that winter was over and spring was coming. So they had a festival to celebrate it and worship, listen, the sun for winning over the darkness of winter. There's at least two things I want to say here. Number one, especially this year because of COVID-19, but really every year, we must realize that for some people, the Christmas season isn't the most wonderful time of the year. For some people, Christmas is dark and dreary. For some people, people get sometimes depressed and sad in this season. Some people are missing people and personalities that they are used to having in this season. Some people deal with seasonal disorder to make sure you get your vitamin D and get exposed to as much sunlight as you can. And some people are dealing with a combination of both. So this season that we call the most wonderful time of the year, make sure that you are as wonderful as you can be for the people around you. Number 2 is this. When somebody says to you, Christmas is a pagan celebration, the answer really is yes and no. Historically, yes, pagans used to celebrate the winter solstice with a festival. Yes, the early Christians took over some of the pagan customs that exist to this day, like holly and mistletoe and Christmas carols and Christmas trees. As December 25th is during the darkest days of the year, the early Christians thought it was a good idea to celebrate Jesus during that time because Jesus is the light of the world. In addition to the winter solstice, there was also the Roman festival called Saturnalia that took place from December 17th through the 23rd, honoring the Roman god Saturn. It is thought that Christians took over these dates of the winter solstice and Saturnalia and made December 25th their own. Let me explain. It's kind of how colloquial language is developed at times over times. Take the word bad. In the Oxford Dictionary and the Webster's Dictionary, bad can simply be defined as not good. But if you look at bad in the Urban Dictionary, bad means real good. Or if you see a brother or a sister on the street, you might say he or she is bad. If you not sure about this word bad, go back to Run DMC. They said it in a line. Not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. There's some more examples that we can look at. If you look at the word tight in Oxford and Webster's in their dictionary, tight is associated with clothes that are too small, or to be constricted or restricted, or a person that is, let's say, stiff, or no personality, or little personality. But tight in the Urban Dictionary is something that is good and sought after, as in that paper was tight, or that singer's vocals were tight. Let me try one more. Once upon a time, dope was another name for illegal drugs, like cocaine or heroin. But now when someone says that's dope, they mean that's fresh, or that's hot, or that's off the hook, or that's off the chain. Dope doesn't mean what it used to be. Dope has garnered and gained another meaning. In other words, they took the original meaning of the word, put some color and context and some culture, some funk and some spice in that word that sounds the same, because but that word that sounds the same has become something totally different. And that's what the early Christians did to the festivals during the most wonderful time of the year. They took what was already being practiced. They took what was already being celebrated. They infused Jesus in it and wrapped his story around it. And December 25th became something totally different. That's why I can honestly and sincerely say Christianity is not the white man's religion. That's another sermon. I might talk about it a little bit. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. Christianity is the white man's religion, because it is true. It's the fact that Christianity was used to subjugate and to make former slaves from the continent of Africa subservient to their masters. But that was a bastardization of what the gospel ministry is all about. As a matter of fact, if you go back to church history and go back to the Bible is actually a story that comes out of the Fertile Crescent, comes out of the African continent itself. You ever heard of a man called the Ethiopian eunuch? That's right, Ethiopia is in Africa. You know where St. Augustine was from? St. Augustine was from Africa. The biggest churches in the 1st and 2nd century, guess where they were? It wasn't Rome. It was in Africa. Look up Abyssinian. Look up Alexandria. All right. What does all this have to do with the most wonderful time of the year? Well, if you know anything about this time, this season that we're in, it seems to go so fast. Time seems to go so fast between Black Friday and Christmas. There's a reason for that. We now follow what's called the Gregorian calendar. Before the Gregorian calendar, there was the Julian calendar, and they were close, but they weren't exactly the same. And so these calendars were trying really to pinpoint when, one, the birth of Jesus was, but most significantly, when the resurrection and the crucifixion of Jesus was. But they couldn't get it quite lined up. And so the Gregorian calendar came after the Julian calendar because a man by the name of Dionysius, his calculations were actually wrong by about 10 days. Facts, you can look this up. That's right. So when the Gregorian calendar came into being, the calendar fast forwarded 10 days, one right after the other. Have you ever noticed? Seems like, at least I remember when I was in school, you get off for Thanksgiving, you go back to school on Monday, then it seems like you go to school for like 2 days, maybe a week, and then it's time for Christmas vacation again. Especially for college students, they have to be feeling this way. They come home for Thanksgiving, if you're able to come home. You got to go back for finals, and it seems like it's a quick turnaround. Time seems to go so fast. What's the point? What am I getting at? In a time where time seems to go so fast, and I know it's been 2020 this year and COVID, but can you believe that we're already in December? It's crazy to think about that. In a time where time goes so fast, we have to make what is most important mean that much more. During this most wonderful time of the year, let's take inventory of what really matters. Number 2, time seems to go so fast in the most wonderful time of the year, but it also reminds us that time pushes us forward. This time of the year, we have no choice. What do you mean? Well, Thanksgiving is over, And then immediately through commercials and everything else, you are forced to think about Christmas. Not only are you forced to think about Christmas, you're forced to think about Christmas in order to go Christmas shopping. Oh my goodness, I have to get this for this person. I have to get that for that person. Who is the Pollyanna going to be? It's not just about Thanksgiving and Christmas, though. It's because today begins the first Sunday of Advent. Advent is a Latin term that means the coming, or it's coming. And so Advent, the first Sunday, typically in December or the last one in November, depending on how the calendar falls, begins, listen, the liturgical calendar of the year. And so we're at the beginning of the liturgical calendar, but we're at the end of the Gregorian calendar looking forward to January 1st. And so we're forced to look forward to the coming of Jesus and the coming of the new year. In the news this week, I like to talk about politics in my messages. In the news this week, the big news is President Trump is finally agreeing, or that the time of transition to transfer the power has come. He was kind of shaking on the arm so that this transition could happen. In order for the transition to happen, he's got to relinquish some power. He has to allow the Biden administration access to some briefings and some information that they were not having access to before. And so there is a transition team that is being put in place. I'm saying something, just don't think I'm talking about the news. There's a transition team that is being put in place. Vice President-elect Biden is choosing his cabinet. In other words, he's choosing those people who he wants to work most closely with him for when January 20th comes. Are you hearing what I'm saying? There are some choices that you need to make for your future during this time. You need to decide what your new year is going to be. You're going to have to start praying about what you want God to do in your life right now. You're going to have to start collecting the people around you who are not there yet, who are going to be with you in 2021. It pushes us forward. Finally, it makes us focus on the family. If this season does anything else, it makes us to focus on the family. If we look close enough at the story of Mary and Joseph and Jesus, it forces us to focus on the family. If we think about Mary visiting Elizabeth, it forces us to focus on the family. If we think about Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, it forces us even to think about young families, and how about teenage pregnancy, and how about blended families. It forces us to focus on the family. And during this year, this season, this most wonderful time of the year, if you're not focused on anything else, please focus on your family. When was Jesus born? I don't know. What date did Jesus actually come into the world? I'm not sure. Some say he was born December 25th in the winter. Some say he was born in the spring at Passover time. Some say he was born in the autumn to coincide with the Festival of Booths. But truth is, nobody knows when Jesus was born. Nobody knows exactly what time of year it was. And oddly and ironically and paradoxically, that's actually good news for us, because it lets us know that you can't pinpoint exactly where God is at any given moment. You have no idea when or how God is going to show up. You never know. And I need that kind of God in my life, where I always have to keep my eyes open for the unexpected. Always have to be on the lookout for what God is going to do when God is going to do something differently. You can't box. You can't put God in a box. You can't even contain all that God is in a book. And so whenever God shows up in your life, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Sometimes God shows up in a person. Sometimes God shows up in a place. Sometimes God shows up in your heart. But whenever God shows up, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Or as I used to hear it, it's the most beautifulest thing in this world. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Amen.